Good evening, everyone. So welcome to this week's One Image My Edit. And tonight, what I'm going to be showing you is how to blend two images together so that you can create high dynamic range images. So the problem we get is that when we're doing shots, we get either the foreground exposed correctly, and then what tends to happen is the sky will overexpose. Okay, so what you can do is actually take two exposures, so one for the sky, one for the foreground, and then you can merge them together. So this image is Jamie Overland's, the landscape guru, so he's provided the image for this, which is a beautiful shot, and I'm going to be walking you through this. It's a really simple and easy process. Okay, so before I start, if you look in the description, there is a link there to my next 5-day challenge, which starts on the 15th of March. You can join me for that. Get off auto in 5 days. It's a really good challenge. Go and register for that. If you've done it before, you want to have another go, then by all means, go and have another go. You can do that. You're more than welcome to come and join me again for it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do this. And like I said, it's a really simple and easy process. There are more than one ways to do this. There's other things that you can do called luminosity masks. You can also use the high dynamic range settings within Photoshop, but that's going to be within the VIP group. So you guys will be receiving a couple of more training videos from me, how you can do that. So what we do then is we start off within Lightroom. Okay, and the trick here is you got both the files selected there down at the bottom. If you right click, and then if you come up to edit in, you can see we've got edit in Photoshop. If you come down all the way to the bottom, it says open as layers in Photoshop. So you click that, and what will happen is that it will load it up within Photoshop. So there we go, and I've actually got two files there. Okay, so now we're in Photoshop. You can see that within the layers here, actually that's me trying to be clever. 1 second, that's me trying to be clever because I preloaded it earlier to try and jump. I'm going to do it again. So there we go. That's it. It's me trying to speed things up and be clever about things, but there we go. Right, so we've got the two images here, and you can see if I click on the eye, we've got the exposure here that Jamie took. So this would have been taken with a light reading for the foreground. So you can see here we've got the foreground perfectly exposed, and the biggest issue here is that, you know, the sun and sky is overexposed. So that's going to happen. You can't balance these two. Okay, when you're doing shots like this, it's inevitable that the highlights will be overexposed because you can't expose for both. You can try and get as close to it as possible, but you're always going to end up with some highlights that are going to be overexposed. So the next stage, the next step is to do high dynamic range imaging, and all that means is that you're taking multiple exposures of the same scene and then merging them together. So, and that's what we're going to do. So if I click on this one here, you can see that what Jamie has done, then he's then exposed for the sky, and what he's actually exposed for is the sun, trying to make sure that there's no areas that are overexposed. And you can see actually this is quite dark for a sky. This is fairly dark, so we may need to tweak that a little bit. Now these are TIFF files. They're actually as they come out of camera, so they would, you know, you need to do a little bit extra as well just to brighten that up. Okay, so all we do from here is we make sure the sky is at the top. Okay, and we're going to come down to the bottom here where we add a layer mask, and you hold the Alt or Option key down and you click on that, and what happens is that a layer mask is created, but can you see it's made out of black? Okay, so a normal layer mask, if I click on there, it comes out white. Can you see? Yeah, so the white one will basically show you everything, and the black hides the adjustment that we're going to do. So what it's basically done is it's put this layer mask over, and now it means that we can actually start to reveal the sky or the foreground that's underneath. So if we come to the brush tool, go up to the top, and you can see we've got hardness here. Okay, I'm going to bring that down so it's quite low. Opacity and flow, I'm going to leave them quite low, just because I want a little bit of control. I don't want to start editing this and do hard edits, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. Make sure your brush is set to white. Okay, it might be on black. You can use these arrows here to switch them over. The easiest way to remember what brush, or what color you need rather, is just to look at the layer mask. If that's white, then you need a black brush, and if it's black, you need a white brush. Okay, so then all we do is literally paint in. So I'm now just painting in, and what this is doing is revealing the sky that's underneath. Okay, so what it's doing, you can see here on the layer mask, the black area is going to be covered and the white area is going to be seen. So if we look at this image here, you can see what I'm starting to do. I'm starting to bring that back. So having the opacity in the flow quite low, what that means is that you can be, you know, a little bit more gentle with it, and you can just brush it in and blend it in. If I move the hardness up and the opacity and the flow up, I'll show you what result you'll get. You'll get that, and that's not good. Okay, so press Command Z just to go back, and that is why we need a soft brush, and we need the opacity down and the flow down. It just gives you a better blend, and that's with anything really within Photoshop. So you can see, you know, we knew the sky was the actual exposure that Jamie took was quite dark, and it had to be because this was such a bright sun, and you know, it was so bright, being a sunrise. I'd imagine that that's the reason why it was you know, slightly underexposed, so to speak. So that is what you would do. Now we can see here, if we take the eye away from the bottom, you can see that's what we've revealed there. So it's just these areas here. Now, because of this particular image with the sky being slightly darker, what you can do is go to the select black, and then you could paint this back in. So what I'm actually going to do is paint some of this sky back in a little bit, because you know, it was slightly dark, and this bit's okay, it's not actually overexposed. So if I then start bringing the opacity and the flow down even more, just to blend this area here, these darker clouds here, in a little bit, we're going to get a really nice result. So I'm just tweaking this, and there we go. You can see that now looks pretty fantastic, doesn't it? So if we take that away, you can see I've actually only brought this part of the image back here, and I could start brushing this areas back in here, just because I know that that area of the sky is absolutely fine. So that's quite a nice result we've got there. So that's how you do it. That is how you blend the two images together. So like I said, with this here, we could certainly click on this layer here and make some adjustments. So we could come down to here, and we could click on the levels, and we could just lighten or brighten everything. Now, if you see what happens when I lighten or darken, it's actually affecting all of the image, which is not what I want. I just want to affect the sky. So what you can do is, if you hold the Option key and this little box appears with the arrow, if you click that, what that means is that it's now clipped just to the sky. So now when I do this, now just the sky is affected, which is pretty neat. It means that I can really take control and just balance that sky out perfectly. So I'd say about there, that's quite nice. And then that will give you a really nice result, nice finish. So if we click back onto the layer there of the sky and come up to image adjustments, and then let's just go down to photo filter. So this is just the next step that you could do if you wanted to. We could add a photo filter to this if we wanted. Press OK, and that finishes it off a little bit. You could do it on this layer here, or you could actually create a new adjustment layer here. Okay, so you could add a solid color. There's lots of things that you could do. So we go to photo filter here. Look, we could actually drag that to the top there, and then decide what we want to do with that photo filter. Okay, so there's a few ways you can do that. There's a few different few different methods, but like I said, this is just tweaking and playing around with it. So again, here, look, we can just add a little bit more orange, just to blend it in, really, just to bring it all in. So that's quite nice. So if you think about that as a as a final image, that is what you want. Because if we come back to Lightroom, if we look at this here, in fact, what I'm going to do within Photoshop, once you've finished, just go to File, Save. Okay, and what that will do is, actually, you can see it's saving at the top there. That will now save that back into Lightroom for us. So that's going to help with the demonstration, actually. So if we bring that up there, you can see now Lightroom has added the final image. So that's the final image there. That's the blend of these two images. So we've got the exposure for the sky, we've got the exposure for the foreground there, and then the two mixed together. And then, of course, now you can play around with this and you can tweak this to your heart's content. So this would be at the stage now where you tweak this and play around. You don't have to add a photo filter like I did within Photoshop if you don't want to, but this would just be tweaking and playing around, which is a little bit extra step, I suppose, and it just helps bring everything together and blend everything in. And again, this is pretty much there's no hard rule for this. It's entirely up to you what you want to do to your image. I like to have the oranges a little bit, the yellows a little bit orange, just personal preference. There we go. So that's a beautiful, beautiful sunrise. Now, maybe a little bit too orange there, but that's by the by. So that's how you do it. It's really, really simple. So how you achieve this in the field is quite simple. You need a tripod. Okay, that helps because you don't want to be taking pictures, changing your exposure, and then having to align the images later on. It's doable, but it's a lot more work. So what you do is you put your camera on a tripod, and you dial in the aperture that you want. So here you can see that Jamie has used 100 ISO because on a tripod, 16 millimeters, so a really nice wide lens, and he's shot at f11, which is excuse me, probably the optimum aperture you can use for landscapes, because that's where that particular lens is at its sharpest. Anything above that and you'll start to sort of slightly soften the image. So f11 is perfect, and you can see that the exposure for the foreground was 1/10 of a second. Okay, and then if we jump back to the sky image, so again the tripod is there, the camera's there. The only settings that Jamie has changed is the shutter speed. You do not change the aperture, because what you will be doing is affecting the depth of field. Okay, so you change the shutter speed, and you can see here that it's gone from 1/10 of a second to 1/60th of a second. So it's a lot quicker. So less light has been let into the lens. Okay, so he's done that and is exposed for the sky. And then we simply bring it into Photoshop and we merge them two images using that layer mask. So it's a real simple, real easy way of getting these beautiful high dynamic range images. So now you know. So go out, practice this. It's a really, really good, fun technique. You can do more than one exposure as well. You can do 3. Some cameras have the options of doing up to 7 or even 12 different frames. So you can do pretty much on your camera can do it for you. There's particular cameras have settings that will enable high dynamic range, and you literally just press the button and it takes care of everything for you. But I would advise to do it manually. So by adjusting the shutter speed, you could do one exposure at 0, and then underexpose it by 1 stop, and then overexpose it by 1 stop. So you've got 3 images, and then you could merge the 3. But for this particular style of image, 2 is more than enough, and it gives you this beautiful, beautiful high dynamic range image. So that's how you do it. Okay, so if you've been getting images either like that, that's because you've been exposing for the sky, or like that, it's because you've been exposing for the foreground. You can't expose for both at the same time. So we take 2 different pictures and then we merge them together to get this beautiful final result. Okay, now this is actually an old film photography technique. Okay, this isn't cheating. This isn't something new. This was actually done. I used to do this years and years ago with positive film. and negatives as well, where you take the two exposures and then in the darkroom you can actually merge them together and get this high dynamic range. So this is not new. This is an old darkroom technique. Okay, so you're still keeping within traditions of photography if that is your concern. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know how you get on. Please post up your images, have a go at this, because it's really good fun and it will really push your photography to that next level. Don't forget, you can join me for my next 5-step blueprint to photography challenge. It starts on the 15th of March. You can sign up. There's a link below in the description of this video. If you want to get notified every time that I go live, there's also a link there for you. If you're in the UK, you will get a text message every time that I go live. And also, don't forget to use my settings section on my website. If you go there, you can pick out any genre of photography and it will tell you what the settings are for that particular genre. So that will give you a really, really good starting point in your photography. So I hope you've all enjoyed that. I'll speak to you all soon. And thanks to Jamie for providing the image. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.